Today, the verdict has dropped and the jury is out. Pfizer is guilty for crimes against humanity. How a date went terribly wrong, but vindicated the news and why it matters. We've got all of that and more coming up, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, and I want to get to our top story, which is the Project Veritas video that blew up the internet last night. They released one of their undercover videos. This one shows, allegedly, a Pfizer employee. This is Jordan Tristan Walker, who claimed in this footage that I'm about to show you that the pharmaceutical company is exploring the possibility of mutating COVID through what they call directed evolution to develop future mRNA vaccines. Let's watch some of that.
We're exploring, you know how the virus keeps mutating?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're exploring is, why don't we just mutate it ourselves so we can create undoubtedly develop new vaccines, right? So we have to do that. If we're going to do that, though, there's a risk of, as you could imagine, no one wants to be having a pharma company mutating viruses.
Yeah.
So we're like, do we want to do this? So that's, one of the things we're considering.
Okay.
The future, maybe we can, create new versions of the vaccines and things like that.
Okay, so Pfizer ultimately is thinking about mutating COVID?
Well, that is not what we say to the public. No. That's why it was a thought that came up in a meeting, and we were like, why do we not? It was we're going to consider that with more discussions.
Okay.
That exact reaction, right? We're like, wait a minute, people won't like that.
Now, after this video blew up online, many on the left tried to discredit it by saying, oh, this guy must be a paid actor, right? That's always their go-to. That's their go-to when I go expose drag shows with children, and they're like, how much did you pay that family to sit there and watch this with the child? It's like, no, these people are actually this grotesque, and we're just uncovering it. Same goes for James O'Keefe over at Project Veritas, because there's LinkedIn profiles that exist of this guy who very clearly started Pfizer in June of 2021 as the director and worldwide R&D strategic operations and mRNA scientific planning at Pfizer in New York. It's just fascinating because I guess the old and busted version was gain of function. And now, the new and trendy version is, directed evolution. Interesting. It's almost like I've been telling you guys for a very long time, and I can't wait to hear what one member of the panel that I'm about to bring in particular, I cannot wait to have this conversation with him because we have a very friendly back and forth on Big Pharma. I'm telling you guys, they're evil. They have always been evil. They have been doing this for a very, very long time and laughing about it behind your backs because they don't actually have Americans' best interests at heart. But it feels nice to be vindicated here on the news and why it matters. I would like to bring in my panel. We have Stu Bergier, host of Stu Does America, and the lovely, the beautiful, the new mama here, BlazeTV host Lauren Chen. It's really good to see you.
It's great to be here. I'm so excited. And I, like you, just want everyone watching to realize that, yes, Big Pharma is not your friend. Trusting Big Pharma is like trusting the government.
Yeah, well, literally, because they are very
in bed together.
Right. They are in bed together. They do have this public-private partnership. Mm-hmm. They have had a very long incestuous relationship with members of the CDC who are trying to. They're supposed to be one of the.
There's a revolving door going on between
right.
pharma and government.
Right. They're supposed to be investigating Big Pharma, and then oftentimes these people in the higher ups at CDC end up as the CFO of Merck. So there's always been this incestuous relationship between the two. I am fascinated, Stu, to get your take on it because, you and I feel a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. I like all the chemicals.
In the past.
Right.
Right.
None of them. Mm-hmm.
Stu, literally loves chemicals.
Yeah, I try to find new ones and just inject them whenever I can.
I want my blood to be 80% vaccine.
Yeah, I think that's about right, yeah. I will point out, and I did note, that you did not call me beautiful.
I did.
I was just,
That's true.
I just wanted to make sure the audience understood that. This is fascinating stuff, right? you don't get to see this sort of behind-the-scenes candor from these people ever, right? And the thing you just pointed out is really a big part of the problem. I'm a big supporter of private businesses, and look, I think there's certainly a world where we all like medicine, right? We all want there to be scientific innovation. We all think that that's, I think, a good thing if done properly and not done in conjunction with the government. And we've seen now, not only through this particular investigation, but also through the Twitter files and other things, there's just too close of a relationship here. This shouldn't be the way this works. That part of this video goes on, maybe you'll be playing this coming up, but they go through the rotating revolving door between the government and these places. How can the government judge what they're doing fairly if as soon as they leave, they go on to high-level jobs at this company? I mean, where do we think, everyone's talking about Fauci leaving, where do we think he's going to end up? He's obviously going to end up getting a 10-figure salary as a consultant for one of these companies. It's clearly going to happen. And so that's a huge problem. It's a problem, I don't think, with capitalism. Like, I think, a lot of people like to vilify capitalism, and I think that the big pharma critique from the left has always been big money capitalism sort of related. I mean, look, I don't mind them. I don't mind the profit motive. Right. I want companies to be sitting here saying, hey, if we come up with the greatest thing in the world, we're going to make lots of money. Unfortunately, what this winds up being is more of a rent-seeking situation where government is working way too closely, and neither one of these sides is holding the line. That line needs to be bright, and it needs to be in between the private industry and the public. These private-public partnerships do not work, and they've been a major problem for a long time.
At one point, this gentleman, who, by the way, I don't understand how they keep, why do these people can't keep their mouth shut? I don't understand.
You go on a date with some attractive stranger, you expose some corporate malfeasance. It's a Friday night.
Right. I'm just like, my God, you people are really, really bad at this. Are they just so desperate for attention that they're just like, oh my God, go on a date with me, I'll tell you all the dirty secrets. It is fascinating to watch. But, he says, COVID is a cash cow. It's going to be a cash cow for us for a while going forward. And it really, so many people are called conspiracy theorists for saying stuff like, I think the government probably knows what the cure is for cancer, and they don't want to give it to you. They don't want to tell you what it is because there's all this money being made on the side, or Big Pharma knows the answer, but they're making too much money on all of these treatment plans. And it does make you see this guy, as James O'Keefe said, his supervisor reports directly to Albert Bourla. So he's
pretty high level.
Very high level, right? And he thinks it's funny. He doesn't care that it's hurting Americans. He just says he's seeing the dollar bills on it. It really makes, I hope that it makes people wonder, how long has this kind of thing been going on and we just haven't been privy to the conversations?
Well, you're right. This is not a new thing. I think the only thing that's different now is that we're actually getting more aware of it. Mm-hmm. And Stu, you bring up that the left loves to say this is a problem with capitalism. I mean, it's not capitalism when Big Pharma is in bed with the government. That's actually very anti-capitalist when you have this amount of state intervention. But there is a problem right now with the way that the healthcare industry is structured, and that they don't profit off of people being healthy. They profit off of people being sick. Absolutely, there is an investment in making sure that COVID doesn't go away. And what I want to know is when people are actually going to be held accountable and responsible for the crimes against, humanity that were committed. Because think about it, if someone can get into trouble with the ATF because their barrel is too short, what's going to happen to Big Pharma if it comes out that they were trying to create a potentially more deadly, more spreadable version of COVID? I think that should be way harsher penalties. But unfortunately, no matter how much we uncover in terms of corruption and lies, it doesn't seem like anyone actually gets punished for it, which is what's so frustrating.
Yeah. And how do you create that level of accountability so that this doesn't happen moving forward? Because, you think about how much they lied about the efficacy of the initial vaccine. And, now you have, I think the government spent $5 billion on these, the updated booster ones for Omicron. And now they're releasing data, the CDC, that shows that the updated shots are 48% effective at stopping symptomatic infection just for up to 3 months, was as far as they went, because I guess they were like, yeah, this one really sucks. We're not even going to test it any further than 3 months. But it's just fascinating because, you're looking at, again, I shouldn't even say the government paid $5 billion. The government can't pay anything, right, is us. We paid $5 billion for this round, just the updated boosters that A, nobody's getting, and B, the majority of Americans who are getting it are not even protected.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much here to unpack, right? I mean, first of all, I did not wake up today thinking I would be watching hidden camera videos of Grindr dates. That was not how I thought this day was going to go, but I'm so excited that it
Congrats,
did.
Stu.
Yeah, it was great. It's funny because I think, like, what's the thing you can get out of this? Because one of the big problems here is the stuff he's admitting to, at least in the parts of the video that I saw, like potentially, hey, the way they might be doing gain of function, or what was it, guided
directed
evolution. Directed
yes.
evolution.
It's very
Remember,
fancy.
gain of function research is a very vilified term. It is also not illegal. That's a big problem, right? Like, the Obama administration banned the funding from the government of gain of function research, not gain of function research. And then Trump, of course, opened up that funding again when he got into office, and then they just stopped it again after COVID broke out. So that's a really big problem, right? Like, how are they going to be held accountable if what we're all saying gain of function? He's going away from the term gain of function even on this date because he knows how toxic that term is, yet still it can be done, which I think is after this experience, especially because we haven't gone through an investigation to really know where this came from, even though I think we have our leanings. How can this still be going on? How can this still be something that's possible for Pfizer to potentially do legally? Although most of the time in the video, he seems to be saying it's in the future, although not all the time. It's kind of hard to know. And I would say, too, I think the most valuable part of an investigation like this that Project Veritas did is kind of as a thread to pull on, right? He's on a date. I don't know. Is he being completely honest? It kind of seems like he is to me, but like I will say this, and this may shock you ladies here, but guys on dates occasionally are not honest, especially when they're trying to sleep with someone. So that does seem to be.
Is that like a new pickup line? Like, look at me creating new pathogens. Yeah, big deal.
It's a weird approach. I'll grant you. But I mean, look, this is an official. We need to look into this, right? This is a great way to say, okay, now we have a bunch of really great new questions and I don't know if anyone's noticed this, a Republican-controlled House with investigatory powers that can go and pull on these threads and see what actually comes up. Because we should all have answers to this. And in addition to the big pharma end of this, we should also be doing this with, China. Because they still have not given us the information that we need to confirm that this came from a lab or disprove it. If that's where this goes.
I think the fact that these investigations aren't already happening, I think it just goes to show how much of a double standard there is when Congress doesn't benefit from an industry like Big Pharma. I mean, think of all the time that they have spent on something like January 6th or Donald Trump and Russia, right? I mean, millions and millions of dollars into these investigations versus something that actually affects everybody, the people actually care about, COVID and its origins. How was this handled? Was there corruption with Big Pharma? And they're all of a sudden, they're not as interested in actually doing their job and trying to hold these big companies accountable. And I know libertarians out there are going to be like, oh, but regulation bad, business good. It's like, I understand that, but I'm not even asking for state control of Big Pharma because that's just worse, even though in essence it's in a lot of ways what we already have. It's just, it's very frustrating. I own a small business, all of the hoops that we have to jump through. Meanwhile, it just seems like Big Pharma, they can do whatever they want. They have carte blanche to create new pathogens, to, get in bed with government, a lot of times even create their own laws. It seems a lot of the COVID mandates, it seems like they were kind of handwritten by Big Pharma. And it's like, this really is just a middle finger to not only Americans, but basically all business owners who don't seem to have this do whatever you want, get out of jail free card.
Yeah, they actually play by the rules.
Exactly.
Follow the rules and get punished for it, apparently.
Right.
All right, we've got more coming up, but we got to take a quick break. First, I want to thank our sponsor, StartMail. So I would ask you, are you tired of feeling like your personal data is at risk? But I'm just going to go ahead and say, big tech is definitely watching everything you do online. And if you don't like that, if that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, you don't want anyone else knowing where you've been, who you met, what you're thinking, StartMail is the perfect solution for protecting your privacy and giving you peace of mind. So they've got a secure email service that it's going to keep your inbox totally safe. Every message can be encrypted or password protected, and when you delete it, it actually is truly gone forever. You can get unlimited disposable email aliases to keep your real identity hidden online. Very simple, just a few clicks, and you can switch from your existing email provider. Start taking advantage of StartMail's enhanced privacy protection. You can sign up to save 50% on your first subscription year if you go to startmail.com/Y. That is StartMail with a T, startmail.com/Y for 50% off. So apparently, 2023 is the year of hideous art and sculptures popping up in random cities here across the country. The latest one being New York City. A state court building in New York City unveiled a new art project. This is a sculpture that is called Now, and it was installed on the roof of the Appellate Division Courthouse of New York State First Department on Madison Avenue. The statue is meant to represent the legacy of the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But as you could imagine, if you are watching this program and not listening to it, it feels a little like, I don't know, like a pagan idol type thing.
This is not a flattering statue.
No, it is not.
Not a good thing.
No, I feel like if you're Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you're really pissed off watching all of this. Well, I mean, if you're her soul. Right? Like she's looking out and she's like, why did you guys do this? I don't want my name to be attached to this. But so the artist said that she called the piece Now. She called this Now because it is needed in the current year when abortion rights are being challenged in the wake of the Supreme Court returning abortion law to the states in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. I feel like at least we're acknowledging that we did that did not just ban abortion, just returned it to the states, which is where it was supposed to be in the first place. But really bizarre representation.
I mean, I guess it's fitting that she's saying it represents abortion because I agree it's demonic. But I feel like, there's a lot of money that goes into paying these artists and commissioning these works. I should start applying for some of these. Not that I'm some great artist, but I don't think I'm any worse than what gets commissioned.
Right.
What do I have to lose?
If Hunter Biden can be an artist too.
Exactly. $500,000 paintings. Here I come.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell on myself a little bit here. So every once in a while, if like the Kardashian show was on, I would watch it because I'm just fascinated by like how are these people so rich for doing like
so little.
So you would think so little, right? But one of the episodes was one of them like going in their garage and just throwing around some paints and trying to sell it to their mother as if it was some random artist for like thousands of dollars. And they did it. So I'm just saying, Lauren, that could be an avenue that you could look into.
No one else take that idea, okay? I want all of the liberal city art commissions.
Actually,
really bizarre.
I think Glenn's going to try to take a bunch of that.
But I'm going to identify as trans.
Oh,
yeah.
Smart. No, it's just funny because does anyone think this is good? Like, does anyone? I mean,
just like tentacles coming out of her arm.
Right. I will say it is an abortion.
So
it does fit fairly well when it comes to that. But like, I don't know, isn't there some, maybe you guys can remember the specifics on this, but hasn't there been like a major critique in the past of putting up gold idols? Like, wasn't that a thing we were supposed to avoid?
Not familiar with it.
You're not,
no,
okay. I
no.
could have sworn that was a thing.
Really?
Sarah. Yeah.
No, probably just misremembered something.
Oh, but okay, if you were living on a block, which would you rather see every day? The terrible MLK statue or this one?
That's a difficult. Well, I feel like this one at least, I mean, I'm pretty uncomfortable when my kids walk by it, but more so the Martin Luther King one. I'm very uncomfortable when my kids walk by it. So
You just have to walk by only certain angles.
Yeah.
Kids, close your eyes.
No, I feel like it just gets worse with like the new angle.
Yeah, that's
Every
true.
new angle I see it at, I'm like,
what is happening?
Yeah, I envisioned something completely different, and none of this is good.
Yeah.
None of it is good. But it's just, I think like too, it's really sad to see women just really laying themselves down at the altar of killing their own babies.
Yeah. It is heartbreaking, and it's just, especially young women. And I feel like, after the red wave never really happened last year, a lot of people were saying, see, this is why abortion is a losing issue for conservatives. We need to back off, and basically, to defeat the left, we must become the left type of thing. Abortion is a winning issue. If you talk to people one-on-one, you ask them, are you okay with this? They will say absolutely not. If you even look at European countries, they are not as extreme as places like New York or Virginia. But the thing is, conservatives have fully lost the information war when it comes to some something like abortion. You know, you had people out there convincing young women that ectopic pregnancies would be outlawed and things like that. And obviously that's not a winning look, and it's of course not true. But no, it's very demoralizing, and it just, this descent into, honestly, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it does feel like Satanism in a lot of ways. It's just something that we need to put all of our weight behind, because it's only going to get worse.
Certainly it is a death cult.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, at bare minimum, it clearly is a death cult. They literally are rallying in the streets for their right to kill their unborn baby. It can't get more demonic than that, in my opinion.
No, and putting it that way, I think, says something to conservatives that they shouldn't really care if it's a winning issue or not.
Right.
It's too freaking important,
Right.
right? These are the lives of children. And I think, too, like, we could learn something from the left here, which is like, gay marriage wasn't a winning issue either for them for a very long time.
Yeah.
A lot of these big issues they push for were really, really unpopular for decades and then have changed over time. I really, maybe this is the dumb optimism in me, but I do feel like at some point in the future, human beings are going to look back at this era really with a real dark sense of what was going on,
Yeah. Well,
we look back at slavery, right? Like we can all kind of come together and say, what the hell were those people thinking? I hope that happens eventually with life, but whether it does or whether it doesn't, it's worth fighting with every ounce of energy we have to stop this from going on.
You're so right. And in terms of looking back and seeing that this is a terrible human rights violation, frankly, most of the developed world is already there in that their laws are stricter than, again, New York and California. So they're already there looking at what's going on over here, thinking, how could you do this? This is barbaric. I just wish the progressive left would kind of catch up to where the rest of humanity and science has kind of already arrived at.
Yeah, and you're so right with what you said, Lauren, about the conservatives not. They're always on the defense, right? They're never on the offense when it comes to messaging. They're always on the defense, and the left will accuse them of, well, I had to go get a D&C procedure, and that actually technically is an abortion, so I'm not allowed to do that in these states. And it's like, that's not true. And I spend so much of my time and energy, I'm going and I'm looking up the laws, and I'm taking screenshots, and I'm trying to get the message out, and I'm like, why is Sarah Gonzalez, like, why am I one of the only people who's doing that? Why am I trying to combat this? Where are all of the lawmakers? Why aren't they putting that out? Why aren't they spending more time trying to go on offense rather than completely play defense? And it's not even the abortion issue. It's on all the issues. We're just constantly like, well, I'm not against women's rights. Well, I'm not homophobic. Well, I'm not transphobic. Well, no. Don't think these bad things about me. It's like, who freaking cares?
They
Stu,
hate
as you
you
pointed
anyway.
out. Right, they hate you anyway. And if you know that you're on the right side of the issue, right, you're fighting for human life, like, who freaking cares? They're going to call you all of those names regardless of what you do. So you might as well come out on offense. Ugh, so frustrating. All right, we got to take another quick break, and we will be back with more. Oh, I can't wait for this. Coming up after the break, let's talk about the Paul Pelosi attack and the body cam footage. So I want to thank our sponsor, Tommy John. I would say, like, is it weird to give underwear on Valentine's Day? Do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. That was
It's
the
like
correct
the
answer.
best time.
Right. It's Valentine's. Well, because you'd say, like, well, I don't want. Well, never mind. I'm not going to go there. You can pamper your partner's posterior with Tommy John. And when I talk about Tommy John, oftentimes, people find me to be a little bit of a drama queen, maybe on this program, but it's literally the softest thing I've ever put on my body. They're both agreeing with
great.
me.
Yeah,
it's great
stuff.
I don't know how they do it. It's like magic, but I don't care, because all I know is that I am most comfortable in my Tommy Johns. They've got stuff for men and women. They've got, the men's underwear, I think, is like where they really started. But they've got loungewear. They've got women's loungewear. They've got women's pajama pants. All of it is the softest clothes you'll ever put on your body. It's also backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. So there's no reason not to try it. Treat your significant other with some Tommy John for Valentine's Day. You can get 20% off your first purchase over at TommyJohn.com/Y. That is TommyJohn.com/Y for 20% off. See site for details. A California judge yesterday ordered the release of evidence against David DePape, who, of course, was the person charged in last year's attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi. I'm sure, unless you're living under a rock, you know the story. The guy came in with we don't really know how he got in.
I don't know the story at all.
Okay, great point.
Yeah.
you know that there is a story that we don't know, but still have many questions on, right? The police arrived. We know the police were called. The police arrived. We know that there have been some changing stories on what happened when the police arrived. We know that NBC, at least, and some other outlets, heavily edited and retracted certain stories that were published to say no, never mind. We got literally all of the details we just told you about what the police told us very specifically. We got completely wrong. Sorry about that. And so there are a lot of questions. That weekend, I went through and FOIA'd and requested the body cam footage. I sent an email to their media relations team, and of course they were like, we're really sorry, but we don't send out footage from ongoing investigations. And I was like, sure. Okay, buddy. I'm sure that that's what the reason is. So they've tried very, very hard to keep this a secret. But finally, a judge over in San Francisco ruled that there was no reason to keep it a secret, especially after prosecutors played it in open court during a preliminary hearing last month. So hopefully we will now get to see for ourselves how this event unfolded, at least once the police got there.
Yeah, because it seems like the approach from the Pelosi sort of machine was to just flood the zone. Every single, you've heard 100 million stories.
Right.
There's reporters being suspended over their stories. It's honestly, at this point, I'm so confused as to what actually happened.
Yeah.
We really need the video. That's the only way we're going to have any certainty here. And what's funny is the argument by their side was to say, well, if we release the video, people will edit the video, and then it will look like something else happened. It's wait, what? They might edit the video.
That's an argument against any video footage ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
all the footage of all time.
Well, I think we need to put this in context, right? Nancy Pelosi kind of stepping down, she did attribute that, at least in part, to what happened with Paul Pelosi. And think of everything Nancy Pelosi has kind of weathered throughout her political career. I don't want to get ahead of myself, and I don't want to get too excited about it, but I think we're probably in for something pretty salacious.
I hope so.
I think so.
Is that bad? Did I say that out loud?
No, I don't think it's a bad thing to actually want what they're doing in the darkness finally come to the light. And I think, remember that if the shoe were on the other foot, this argument is cliched at this point, but do you think the likes of Nancy Pelosi would ever give any grace to if it had been Donald Trump's family member? Absolutely not. So I can't wait to see it. And this is going to be great for content. I'm going to make 50 videos about it. We're going to clickbait the title, Laser Eye Nancy Pelosi. We're going to have fun.
I really do enjoy these conspiracy theories on what exactly happened and why this man was there. And, why, because remember, the initial reports were that Paul opened the door for the police very calmly and let them come in and was just kind of
walked back to the guy, right?
Right, walked back in there towards the guy, which really doesn't seem to be a reasonable thing to do if this guy has just broken into your house
and hit you with a hammer.
Yeah, right, or saying that he's going to hurt you, right?
Yeah, he may have hit him after. Right in front of the police too.
Yes,
what I heard,
which is really weird. Seems like an emotional state of mind, which I don't know. But also, if I recall, the glass door, the sliding glass door. Remember the window was busted. The glass was busted outside the house, not inside.
So someone
a bunch of glass
trying to break out.
I'm just saying, I'm not a crime scene investigator, but it seems like that would be someone who had hit it from the inside rather than the outside. So how would that have been his entry point? So how did he get in? I don't think we have the details on that yet. So I don't know. I'm just I'm here for it.
We really don't know anything about this.
Right.
And that's what's fascinating about it, because it's a major public figure, right? If it was another major public figure, we would know lots about it, right? We would know all the details. We know all the details of every Kardashian's love life. How do we not know this? She was the Speaker of the House at the time. It is a really major thing. We should know what's going on. And the salacious part will be fascinating, obviously, if it's true. But regardless, whether maybe it's exactly how they told us, maybe it's exactly the most boring thing in the world.
Which version?
Right. Version 9, obviously. That's the one I'm talking about. But whatever version it is, maybe it's exactly the most boring thing in the world. world, a terrible break-in that went wrong and hurt this old guy. And if that's it, we should also know that too. And the way they've handled this has been ridiculous.
Well, I think we actually do know something. We can say for 100% sure that this was absolutely not an attack by a right-wing extremist. Because we know that if that had been the case, would they have been laying it on thick? They would have been spreading that everywhere. I mean, there was like a day and a half where they were trying that angle.
They did.
But then, it came out his address and there's just a photo of the house and with all the BLM flags, it's like, okay, clearly that's not going to work. So that narrative kind of went away. But I think that's basically the only thing we can say for certain is that there wasn't a way for them to spin this as a right-wing extremist attack. Otherwise, they would have.
Didn't they also say he was like a self-described like radical nudist or something?
Yes.
Yes.
I think he was a radical nudist.
I don't know very many, I don't know any
Conservative radical nudists.
Oh, it's a huge community.
Is it?
Yes, there are dozens of them.
Also, like, what makes one a radical nudist as opposed to just like a regular nudist?
Not even socks, Sarah. Not even socks.
Ever.
Yeah.
Even in the winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But I mean, it will be fascinating. And you do bring up a great point about feeling like there has to be something salacious because of the way that they're trying to dismiss it, because the guys pleaded not guilty to this. And there are going to be things that obviously have to come out in trial. I doubt, though, that we'll hear about it from the mainstream media. That's my thing, is like, that's going to be the key, is like, we need to be probably checking in on this trial and all of the evidence that's being presented that we can get our hands on, because I don't think that NBC is going to be reporting on it if it obviously looks bad for anyone on the left. They will carry the water.
Yeah. I mean, look, she's been one of the most powerful women in the world for decades. If something is awry here, she's going to use every little bit of her power to make sure that we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And she's got a lot of power to spare. I mean, this is a power couple not only in the country, but in this neighborhood in particular. And so the fact that we don't know so far shows that they have a lot of control over information in this process. But it's good. Like, I feel like this has happened to us 25 times lately, where the only thing standing between us and complete and utter chaos have been the courts. The courts have largely stayed now they make bad decisions as well, but at least occasionally we're seeing somebody who's standing up and saying, look, I know you're trying this crazy thing that no one's ever tried before, but no. Yeah. And that really seems to be the only barrier these days.
So I love that you brought that up, because I want to switch gears here and talk about, in that same vein, somewhere else in California. I know we talked briefly about COVID earlier, but California's Assembly Bill 2098 is the one that is supposed to reprimand physicians who share what they would call like unorthodox COVID-19 information. They had passed it and it was ready to go, and a judge actually blocked that particular law. So he blocked the implementation of the bill. It was signed by Gavin Newsom in September. And Newsom was among, there was a group that was sued by 5 California doctors in November for violating their rights to free speech and due process. So that has been blocked for now. But I think that goes to your point, Stu, that like our dictators are like trying a whole bunch of unprecedented tactics to try to silence us, to try to, squash their opposition. And sometimes it takes too long, right? Like you talk about, it's going to take, they know what they're doing. Let's take Joe Biden's, what was it, the student debt thing? Was that the one that he said? I don't know. He does so many unconstitutional things. I can't keep track.
There's also the eviction moratorium.
Yeah. One of those, I remember he admitted was not constitutional.
Yeah.
But they do it anyway because they know it's going to take a while to move it through the courts, especially if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. So, there's some lapse in time where, unfortunately, people just kind of have to live with it. But I mean, this was insane. The Medical Board of California and the Osteopathic Medical Board of California would be allowed to discipline physicians who share information that does not fall within the contemporary scientific consensus, which I feel like goes against like the whole idea of science, because the entire
idea
of science. It's not
about consensus, it's about evidence.
Right, and it's all like science is never settled. We're constantly learning new things. We're constantly having to challenge what we think that we knew before, because think about all of the things that we've learned that the earth is not flat. right? Like women should not smoke while they are pregnant, you know? All of these things would not have been achieved if we were like, oh, you can't share things that don't go with the consensus of people.
No, this is about control. It's not about health. And the reason why we can know it's about control and not health is that this is happening in California. How many doctors are out there with their hippy-dippy clients saying that, yes, you can cure obesity with crystals? Probably a lot of them. I don't think anything like this has ever been brought up to deal with those types of doctors. No, this is being dealt with specifically people who speak out about COVID and the vaccine. And, you know, just one more point about how consensus does not equal correctness is that there were many doctors who from the start were raising questions about myocarditis and the vaccine. And I mean, are they going to get an apology from these boards? I don't think so. And I know leftists watching this might be like, oh, well, you know, the science has changed. At the time, it's like, no, it's not. They were actually showing the same evidence that people are now using. It's just you didn't want to listen to them. The science hasn't changed. It's just your willingness to accept the narrative. That that's what's changed. So it's, I mean, I hope that there are more doctors out there who are at least becoming skeptical of their governing bodies, because I was actually very disappointed at the height of COVID how many doctors seem to just fall in line.
Go along with it. Yeah, Stu, last word.
I think just backing up to the larger thing, because you mentioned the loan situation. But you're right. I mean, like, not only did Biden's own Department of Education say that couldn't happen, also Nancy Pelosi herself came out and said this can't happen. And I think like there's a change in calculus here from Democratic politicians in particular. I think in the past, if you were to, Roosevelt did a lot of this stuff. He did stuff that it would be overruled in the courts and called unconstitutional, and people would be like, oh my gosh, this guy screwed up. He thought he could do this, and he can't. And it used to be like almost like a judgment of incompetence at someone who would have a big bill. They'd put all this time in, and then it would get overturned by the courts. The calculus among Democrats now seems to be, it's a good thing, right? I'm showing my street cred, right? Yep. If I'm doing something so progressive that even the courts won't even allow us to do it, that means you should definitely elect me next time. I'll be the greatest president ever. I'll do this stuff all the time. It's a really it's also that behavior is straight out impeachable. That is the exact type of thing that is supposed to be impeachable, but also is really, really toxic to our republic. It's a real problem because they're trying to exploit these systems for their own gain.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about Donald Trump coming back on certain social media platforms. Facebook parent company Meta said yesterday it will restore former President Donald Trump's personal account in the coming weeks. This is, of course, ending a 2-year suspension that it imposed in the wake of January 6th. They did say, though, that they are adding new guardrails to ensure that there are no repeat offenders who violate their rules, even if they are political candidates and leaders. In a statement, one of their spokespeople said, in the event that Mr. Trump posts further violating content, the content will be removed and he will be suspended for between 1 month and 2 years, depending on the severity of the violation, which feels like quite a span.
Yeah, some birth, depending on how spicy he gets.
And so we should expect, I guess, to see Trump come back to Facebook and Instagram. I don't know. He said before, he's kind of gone back and forth because the Twitter said that there was a report that said that he was going to come back to Twitter. But previously he had said like, I'm not doing that because I've got Truth Social over here and everyone should join it. But I think he's realizing like, if you want to talk to the masses, you got to go back on
I mean, what happens
Twitter.
With him posting to Truth Social is that people post screenshots onto Twitter.
On Twitter,
and then people are talking about him without him being there.
Right.
Again, he wants to push his own company, but he also loves the attention. Like, we know that about Trump. So I think eventually he will come back to Twitter, but I feel like maybe Facebook and Instagram are different enough from Truth Social and that kind of text-based sphere. Like, he could post memes. He used to do that on Instagram.
I feel like we really lose sight of the fact of like how crazy it was to literally ban a sitting president from social media.
Incredible.
I do. I feel like we lose sight of that. We're like, oh, cool, because like you pointed out, like the memes, and I think Trump is one of the best follows on social media because he's so freaking funny.
Yes.
Even when he doesn't intend to be funny, like he's just funny. I get a kick out of what he has to say, and but still, it's like, okay, I'm hyped because he's funny, but then it's like, holy crap, like we really did just do that.
Yeah, and that's such an easy carve-out for these tech companies. There are tough lines for them sometimes, I guess, on these decisions. They get pressure from both sides.
Taliban leaders on
but that's
Twitter.
What I mean. Like, and I, by the way, support having Taliban. I want every crazy person out there who is, especially in political office, to be blurting out all the crap that they believe. How else are we going to know what they believe? I want them saying it. And that's an easy carve-out for these companies. I understand sometimes they have weird lines, but like really the basic line here is anything that's not illegal said by a public official is quite clearly should be on there. And I keep coming back to this. It's like, I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for Trump, honestly. Like, I don't know that necessarily his best instincts are served on social media. I saw there was a report yesterday. They're like, Donald Trump has gone his entire career without ever sending emails or texting. But he's lately started texting. I'm like, good God, no! No! Take the phone away. That's not a good thing. I mean, it's I don't know if you want Donald Trump to be, to be president. He obviously wants that to happen.
Yeah.
Him in this space isn't always the best part of his campaign. But again, it does fire up the base. It does get people excited, and it gets him. He's always leading the news when he does it. So I think eventually he's going to realize, look, if I want to get in the middle of this, I really want to win this thing. I got to be back in places where people are.
Yeah.
I feel like the left-wing journalists on Twitter are kind of in a hard space, right? Because they hate Trump. They hate that it gives him popularity. It boosts his message. But also they have like that obsession with him. They want to reply to everything. It's like they've been talking about him for 4+ years, from when he came onto the scene, and then like even when he's gone, they're still talking about him. So I don't think it's going to be that easy for them to say like, oh yeah, he could just stay on True Social. I think that they want him back so that they can obsess about him more.
I agree, and I think I would liken it too to like they fought so hard to get him out of office, and then their ratings tanked because they couldn't.
This hurt them, right?
Right.
It hurt them.
It hurts them.
It probably helped Trump not being on there commenting on every development of the January 6th stuff as it was going on.
Right.
And it hurt these news organizations who lost 80% of their audience.
Yep. Yeah.
And by the way, good. I'm glad they lost it.
Right. Yeah. No, me too. But yeah, it really was fascinating to watch them like root for their own demise but not know it. But all right, we got to take a break. We'll be back with more.
Remember, that was a Kamala idea initially. She was the one that was like first pushing for him to be kicked off Twitter. And of course, it would be a failure.
All right, we got a couple minutes left to close the show. Why not have fun with it? When I'm going to say that we're going to watch a clip from The View, and you're like, well, how can that possibly be fun, Sarah? That doesn't make any sense. But all right, it's just another Eric Swalwell moment, I'll say. So, we had the Eric Swalwell moment.
People on The View are having sex with Chinese spies?
No, the other Eric Swalwell.
They're farting on
where
camera?
He farted on TV, yes.
Okay,
Well, we don't know. We don't know. So I want you guys to listen. This is the new controversy here is, did someone fart on The View in the middle of their taping? So I want to play for you. There's like a puddle of water that Whoopi Goldberg is talking about, and then they're trying to fix the water, and then a very strange noise occurs. Watch.
But is it true that Trump had nuclear secrets?
It's been reported, but we don't know the specifics. But just real quick, I was... we had a little spillage on the other side of the table.
On my pants. All right, forget it. Go ahead.
I mean, it certainly sounds like it.
But what makes me think it's not is that it might have been the chair, like when she's moving.
Yeah, but okay. All right. I want it because I thought that too, but I was like, yeah, but I don't think a chair makes that noise. Let's listen again.
But is it true that Trump had nuclear secrets?
It's been reported, but we don't know the specifics. But just real quick, I was...
Maybe.
Yeah, it does time out.
Maybe.
You're right.
Maybe. I like the fart. I like the fart theory better.
I do too, and I'm going to stick with it. And I'm going to say it's Whoopi. Even though it doesn't appear to be Whoopi, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's the right way to go.
But someone named
where does the
Whoopi.
water come from?
I don't know. None of it makes sense. Like, why is there random water on the table?
Right, because she doesn't knock. I was looking at her hands to see what she knocked over, but she doesn't knock anything over.
There's just water
Is it
there.
falling from the sky?
God is like, I cannot abide by this show anymore. Plagues upon you all.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for being here. Stu Bergier and Lauren Chen, the beautiful Lauren Chen.
and the beautiful Stu.